Hello, and welcome back on your mathematical journey. So today I want to look a little bit at the absolute value function, where thankfully no negativity is allowed. So first I want to give you sort of a definition of what do we mean by the absolute value function. Well, first of all, I want to explain that when we see it on a piece of paper, it's going to sort of look like this. It's going to look like either you can think of them as parentheses that are straightened out, or it's almost like kind of like railroad tracks in a way, but sort of these two vertical lines either surrounding a number, or they can also surround expressions as well. And all that we mean by absolute value is basically how far is a number away from the number 0, right? And so if we were to look at a number line, right, let's start with the base case of, or the basic example of 7, right? If we looked at a number line and we counted how many spaces are between 0 and 7, right, we would be 7 spaces away from 0. So in the case where our number inside the absolute value symbol is positive, the absolute value is just going to equal to the number itself. So the absolute value of 7 is just 7. Now, let's take a look at this one, the absolute value of negative 11. Well, if I were to ask you how far is negative 11 away from 0, right, you wouldn't say that negative 11 is negative 11 units away from 0, right? We would think of it always in the positive sense, right? Much like when you think about, how many miles you are away from a certain location. We're going to think with the same logic here, right? Since negative 11 is 11 units away from 0, that means the absolute value of negative 11 is going to end up being positive 11. So we sort of have this nice rule with absolute value, where if the number or value inside is already positive, then sort of nothing happens. It sort of maintains the same value. Whereas if the number or expression inside the absolute value symbols is negative, we just sort of flip to the positive version of that number. Or you can think of it as multiplying what's inside here by negative 1. So now I want to take a look at how we would solve a question like this, right? We're told the absolute value of x plus 3 equals to 9. Well, first I want to take a minute, or a second rather, to stop and think. And my question to you is, what two numbers would produce an absolute value of 9? So give it a thought. Okay, right? So if we were to look at a number line and we were to count sort of in opposite directions until we got 9 units away, right, we would say that the two values that produce an absolute value of 9 would be positive 9 and negative 9. So to apply that to this problem, right, we can think about removing the absolute value symbol, but in return, we need to account for both of those cases, right? So this implies that either x plus 3 just equals to 9 itself, or, right, we also said that, well, if what's inside here equals to negative 9, then the absolute value of negative 9 is also positive 9. So in this case, we can say, or x plus 3 is equal to negative 9. And so at this point, right, we've taken this problem, we've taken this unusual symbol, and we've broken it down into two problems that are a little bit more straightforward for us to solve, right? We can go ahead and solve each of these for the variable x. Right, in both cases, to get x by itself, we're going to want to subtract 3 from both sides. So in the first case, right, we'll get that x plus 3 minus 3 will cancel, equals to 9 minus 3 is 6. And similarly over here, we can subtract 3 from both sides. Right, plus 3 minus 3 will cancel. We'll get x equals to 9 minus 3. Is going to be negative 12. So we have found, right, that we have two possible answers. The last thing we want to do is just go back and double check. Right, we'll plug them in when x equals to 6, right? 6 plus 3 is equal to 9, and the absolute value of 9 most certainly is 9. And then we can check this one, right? When x is negative 12, right? Negative 12 plus 3 is going to be negative 9. But as we established earlier, right, the absolute value of negative 9 will also be positive 9. So this is a brief look at the absolute value function, right? Both the definition, a couple basic examples, and then a problem looking at how we can solve equations when they have the absolute value symbol in them. Anyway, if you have any further questions or comments, feel free to post them in the comments below. Otherwise, have a good day and happy mathing.